How about we take a quick moment to get settled, to take a pause from everything that's happening outside of you, and to ground into your own present state of awareness, your own internal world as you are here at this point in space and time. Just a moment to turn inward and check in with yourself. Perhaps closing down your eyes if that feels comfortable. If not, keeping them open. So this is your space to play in. Maybe taking a few full breaths down in your body. Are you feeling the rise and fall in your chest, the rise and fall of your abdomen? It's taking a few full breaths down in your body. And when you're ready, holding this little bit of curiosity as you ask, just what's up? What is here going on in your own internal space? Are there any sensations, any feelings, any emotions? Just, with open curiosity, what's here? What is alive in your space? And as you're in this practice, there's a good chance that you might be interrupted by thought patterns, by a noise, by something going on that comes into your own internal world. And that's okay, just acknowledging it and then turning back inward to your felt experience right now in this moment. Just checking in. And when you're ready, letting go of that practice. If you want to hit pause and hang out here for longer, I get that. But continuing on with today's talk, I'm so happy to be here with you. I know our normal rhythm here on YouTube has been interrupted as I've moved and a lot of big changes have happened in my life, getting laid off of my corporate job, really having to spend a lot of time reorganizing and really being in an excited space of what's new, what's possible now that my life looks quite different than it did 2 months, a month, a couple weeks ago. It's insane how fast life can change sometimes. And in that, I've been writing a lot in this time. I've been writing a lot. And if you're not a part of my Substack, just a little shout out to go find me on Substack. That is my home for pretty much weekly writings at this point. Sometimes more than that. It's a space where I'm also offering a lot of guided practices. And if you're a paid subscriber, offering a lot more in-depth guided practices. So if you enjoyed this little bit of an intro practice we did today, then that's a space that you can find a lot more guidance for these practices where we get to go inward and work with our own internal experience. But with that, I've been over in that space writing a lot about letting go, about release. As I'm filming this, we are deep in autumn. I've been spending nearly every single day up in the changing forest, soaking in just the spectacular beauty that comes forth this time of year as the trees, the shrubs, the ground, just everything out there goes through this magnificent change, and it's so beautiful. And it's also a dying practice. It's a death of all the vibrant green, all the life that has been brought forth in these summer months here to shine for these few short months before letting go of it all, letting go in this spectacular display of color. And it's just got my attention fully hooked right now, how nature works in these really crazy, beautiful ways. And it's been happening at a time where in my own life, I've been in this deep space of letting go of, yes, that which has served beautiful purposes for the time that they've been in my life. And now in this time of deep transformation, letting go of that which clearly isn't serving anymore, whether that's my own conscious choice. I've made some very conscious decisions to let go of certain things, and I've had other things just swept out from under me, and being able to be in that space of, okay, this is scary. This wasn't in my plan, but I see how this is really what is needed at this point in time. Now, I want to speak to a very, very specific point here in this, again, this transformation I'm going through, moving finally out of the corporate world, out of this job I've been holding on to that has been providing the stability I needed in my life to start to bring this platform to life. And now moving into this space where there's so much more freedom, there's so much more time, there's so much more energy available to me to really bring you all exactly what I want to be bringing. But with that requires an exchange. If I am going to be able to do this full time, there is an exchange there that has to happen. And with that, I just want to spend a moment here to encourage you to check out some of the other offerings I have. Again, consider becoming a paid member on Substack, or if not, just taking the first step, following me on Substack. I have some other offerings coming out, including the launch of the Upward Slopes podcast. This is a project I've been putting together for so many years now, really holding the intention that this is a space that I want to be able to connect with you all, but really waiting for the right time. And the fun part about this, I'll let you in on a little bit of behind the scenes here, is this podcast, about a month ago, I wasn't even planning it, but it really just showed up like, it's time. It's time. I'm ready. I have finally landed on the topic that I just can't shut up about. I just want to be talking and sharing stories and providing you practices and bringing in other people to have conversations. So similar to what we do here, but a little bit, a space we can go into more depth, a space where I can bring in other people to have conversations with. So I invite you to go check out the Upward Slopes podcast. If you're listening to this before October 23rd, there is a trailer and a guided meditation up there. So I invite you to go check that out. If you're doing this on or after October 23rd, then there's some full-length podcasts there. And I just once again invite you to go check out that space. Finally, look forward to some workshops. I have a list of like 20 workshops, courses, whatever words we want to put to them, spaces where we can really come into a space of practice, much less me here chattering and much more you being in practice. So look for those coming out. If you're not on the Upward Slopes newsletter, visit upwardslopes.com, join the newsletter so you're in the know. Okay, that's enough of me talking about what's going on in this space. Let's really get into today's topic. So I opened today's video by guiding you into an embodied practice, a very simple one wherein we can take a moment, look inward, and just check in with ourselves. Like, what is alive in our own internal world? We spend so much time interacting with what's going on out there, often kind of chasing after one thing after the next. What is one something that's grabbing our attention, and then there's the next thing, and let's be honest, usually there's 100 things at once trying to grab our attention, right? And all of that's fine. There's beautiful, beautiful moments in that. And also, are we finding the time to be in our own fully embodied experience of the moment? So I also spoke a little bit to this time of year, and maybe you're watching this and this is relevant. This is this time of year. Maybe you're not. Regardless, I promise what's to come is relevant to what's going on in your world. But right now, I am deep in the season of autumn, and with it, there's this darkening, this quieting of all that's going on out there. I've spent the summer just doing all I can to be immersed in the world, in the forests, in other ecosystems where just life is shining so brightly, is being fully expressed. Again, this beautiful, amazing outward energy. And now things are starting to shift. What's going on out there in my part of the world at this point in time is this slowing down, this darkening, this dying process. And yes, this can be intense, and it can also be subtle. It can also be subtle as we're simply asked to spend a little less time focusing out there and a little bit more time focusing inward. Now, there's a million different ways that we can do this. The practice, as I opened this video, is one way. Maybe you have a regular meditation practice. Maybe you have a yoga practice. The list goes on and on and on. And the point isn't for me to tell you what exact practice you should be doing, but instead to bring forth an invitation to find a practice. Again, maybe it's so simple. Taking time, maybe 5 times a day, to feel your feet on the floor, to take a few grounding breaths down in your body and simply ask, like, what's alive? What's alive for me in this moment? Or again, maybe it's setting a timer for 20 minutes while you sit in meditation, releasing all external distractions and really, really bringing your full attention to look inward. Or again, maybe it's finally going out and joining a gentle yoga class because you want to be in a community of people who are all interested in this process of slowing down, being a little bit more gentle with ourselves as we look inward. I'm not actually offering that right now, but that is on occasion one of my offerings. So a little bit of a shout out to that. So really, again, this invitation, as we move into these winter months, there is a lot more time that we get to be in darkness, and not in this painful, heavy way, but maybe seeing it more as an opportunity to, again, be inward, spending more time looking deeper down in your depths. So what happens? What happens as we start to engage in this regular practice of looking inward? Now, as I'm saying that, I'm already starting to laugh a little bit because the possibilities are endless, which is why I love this work that I do, because I'm never bored in this space, because there is so much alive in any one moment that we could spend hours and hours and days and weeks talking about this. But I want to really point out some of the basics, but very real, very important things to know for those who are starting out. You know, maybe you jumped into this video and you've kind of been like, what are you talking about? I've never done this, but there's something here that's hooked you in and you want to know more about how you can start this practice. Maybe you've tried meditation before and you're one of those people that's like, nope, not for me, which I totally respect. I understand. I'm going to help give you some tips here to help guide you into a practice that does work for you. Or maybe you're a seasoned meditator and it's just not working for you anymore. You know, what I want to do here is have some conversation around how to walk into this internal embodied practice in a way that you can stick with it and really, really get some goodness out of it. Okay, so with that, one of the big problems that I hear people running into is boredom. Like, okay, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to close my eyes, I'm going to start to feel internally, and there's just like nothing. Like, I can't actually pick up on anything such that it's like, why am I even here? Why am I doing this? Like, there's nothing here. What are you talking about? There's a whole internal world, and what? So if this is you, there's a lot of different reasons why this may be your case, but the big one that's really coming to mind right now is this world. This world has actively taught us to disconnect from our own internal embodied experience of this world. And there's a lot of reasons, a lot of really crunchy reasons for that we could go into. Skipping over that rabbit hole for today, just knowing that there has been an active effort to disconnect us from our bodies, because people know that there is power when we are fully in tune with our feelings, our emotions, these sensations that are alive in us, and disconnecting us from that, teaching us to fear that, or teaching us to believe that, feeling is weakness and all that bullshit. Like, the power is in reconnecting with ourselves, but doing it in a way where we give ourselves a lot of space and a lot of grace, because it might take time. Again, you might walk into a practice and there's nothing because your body and your ancestors' bodies, maybe you all for generations have been in this space where you've been actively disconnecting, and knowing that it might take some time for things to come online. So just giving yourself, again, the space, the time, the grace for this to happen. So the next thing, right, number 2 here, that you may run into as you're being in this practice of looking inward, is that you may run into some sensations, some experiences that in that moment are too much, right? We bury a lot of stuff down in our bodies. How many years have you walked through life with the mentality that emotions and feelings are weakness, and if something rises up, you have to shove it down because being with it, again, is weakness, it's inconvenient, it's going to disrupt what you're trying to focus on in your day, right? We all do this. When we do it, that stuff that we push down, it doesn't go away. It hangs out down in our bodies. And if we're going to be in this intentional practice that is tuning back in with ourselves, there's a chance that, when you close your eyes down and you get quiet and you start to listen inward, that something is going to rise up that is too much for you to handle in that moment. And I want to speak these words to it, not to instill any fear in you that this is something that you need to avoid or run away from or not touch, right? This is very, very important work. But knowing that if that happens, that your task isn't to put on your warrior face and decide you're going to go into battle to conquer this emotion or feeling, or the flip side, you may want to run away and shut that down and keep that down and never want to face it while you run away from this practice because you can't handle it. What if instead we can walk through these sort of experiences with so much grace for ourselves? And what that looks like is, when needed, stepping out of the practice. If you've gone too deep, if you've touched on something that's too much, you can exit the practice. Maybe it's not the right time or space for you. Or you may want to step out and feel your feet on the floor. Maybe bring some touch to your skin. Doing something that keeps you in your experience, but doesn't do so in a way that's too activating, too triggering in a certain part of you. And of course, if you want extra help, go find a professional that can help guide you with this, right? This can be very tricky territory. If you want, book a call with me. I am so happy to talk to you, to see if we can work together to go deeper into this, or to see if I can guide you to someone else who may be better at working with your particular situation. Okay, so we've addressed that when we are in this sort of practice, looking inward, being in our own internal experience, we've addressed that you may be bored, you may not feel much because there's just not much coming online yet. And we've also addressed kind of the other end, that there may be something that comes up that's too much to handle, okay? So we've talked about these two things, and can just having awareness that these exist and it's normal and there are ways to work with it, and that it doesn't mean that you need to bail on this practice that can bring so much value into your life. Okay. Is there anything else here that I want to talk about today? I think I want to start to bring this video to a close just by talking about how much amazing opportunity there is when we start to really be in tune with what's going on, what's alive in us in any one moment. I've been doing this for a while now, and that's not to say that I've always been doing this. I've spent most of my life, I talk about this a lot, as a scientist, as an engineer, as an athlete, whatever walk of life I was in, it was always about what's out there, what's calling to me, what am I supposed to be doing, and how can I make myself fit into that space that the external world is calling me to be in. And it's not that that's all bad, right? There's great value there in so many ways. And also, if we're not not entering into those spaces while also being connected with what's happening inside, then we end up losing ourselves. We end up making ourselves fit into boxes that others have created. And what this really gets to be is this way of walking through life where, yes, we get to answer the call to go do something that, yes, maybe has some mold, and we're going to do our best to fit it because there's an achievement there, there's some value there. But we're not going to do it by compromising what is truly alive within ourselves. Okay, let's end today with a story of which one should I pick, because I know I've done this so many times in my life. I've compromised what's going on in here. Even when I was getting strongly pinged, like emotion, some other sensation, just some knowing, like, Katie, don't go make yourself fit into that box. But I did anyway. And what's often the case is injury, right? Is injury. And yes, sometimes it's minor and we get to bounce back from it. It's a lesson learned. And sometimes it cuts deep. It cuts deep and really changes the way that we're forced to do things. So in 2020, 2021, I was really deep in my rock climbing game, like out there multiple times a week, really improving quickly, climbing routes I never imagined myself climbing. It was this amazing space, and I had a couple of incredible partners, and we'd all kind of been advancing somewhat at the same level. And this beautiful experience. I was so in love with the whole experience. Then something happened. A few things started happening. One is that my forearm, right? I started to develop some pain in my forearm and really started getting this signal to back off. I was pushing too hard physically, and I needed to back off. The other thing that was happening was, we all know this was a time in our history where things were stressful. In my own life, I was dealing with the stress of the pandemic that we all were. And I also had a list of things in my own life that were extreme stressors. And for a while, climbing was super helpful. It was this outlet that I could go put myself in the moment, be fully in the moment, and let go of all the other shit that was going on in my life, in the world. And it was this beautiful experience. And what happened was I got really attached to it. Like this experience, I clung to it because, again, it was providing so much value in my life. What happened, okay, as that physical stress, as that emotional stress started building and building, again, I'm getting these signals from my wrist to back off physically. I'm also starting to get these signals from my nervous system that I need to back off. Okay, I'm just crippled with anxiety. And when I step onto the wall, I'm starting to feel that amplify. Now, if at this time I had been in this sort of practice that I'm talking about, which is really listening inward and also responding to that, which is something we haven't talked about in this video, listening inward and really paying attention to that information, really valuing that information enough to make changes in our lives. If I had done that, I would have backed off for a few weeks. Maybe I needed a few months break. And yeah, I wouldn't have loved that I wasn't climbing as much, but oh well, it would have been fine. Had I done that, I would have been back in the climbing game. I would have continued to progress. I would have continued to be so in love with this game that means so much to me. Instead, I didn't listen. And I kept pushing. And what happened is that I then got to spend 2 years and somewhat counting out of the game. As I got to deal every single day with serious consequences of what happens when we push ourselves too hard. Again, physically, mentally, emotionally. For myself in this experience, it was all wrapped up into one demon of an experience that I got to deal with because I didn't listen. And I don't want that for you. I want you to be able to walk through life in this dance. What is calling to you? What do you need to go do? And also, where are you at? What is alive in the current state of your nervous system? In the current state of your physical stuff that is your body, right? What is alive as your emotional body? There's so many different parts of ourselves, and we only get to work with them with the most skill possible if we can be in this sort of practice that I'm talking about. Once more, shall we close today by going back inward, again, closing your eyes only if that feels comfortable and is safe to do so. Maybe feeling your feet on the floor, taking those few breaths down in your body, feeling your belly, your rib cage rise and fall. And when you're ready, asking the question with just open curiosity. What's alive here? What's here that I need to see, to feel, to know? Again, hanging out there as long as you'd like. Once more, if you want to go deeper into practice, make sure you're on the Upward Slopes newsletter, subscribe to my Substack. Again, that's where I'm providing most of my most of my practices, right, my more in-depth practices to my paid members, you can always book a call with me, see if working with me directly is a good option for you. I am here in that sort of space to really tailor practices for you that can best serve you given your inherent characteristics, given your situation in life, given your wants, your needs, your desires. And lastly, if you have not, make sure you are subscribed to this channel so that we can continue on with this conversation. Thank you so much for listening today, and whatever the next spaces that we find ourselves in, I look forward to seeing you there.